Ever wondered who coined the term elevator pitch and how it became part of the cultural zeitgeist? Well, in today's video, I'm going to tell you the story of how the term elevator pitch came about. But before we do that, what exactly is an elevator pitch? An elevator pitch is a short description of an idea, a product, or a company which explains the who is it for, how does it work, why is it needed. The length of an elevator pitch typically spans between 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and it's used to entice investors, your boss. Now, it's different from a sales pitch, which involves a very clear buyer-seller dynamic. Now, there are many stories of how the elevator pitch came about. The first commonly known story is of Caruso, a journalist working at the Vanity Fair, who was always hard-pressed to pitch his ideas to the editor-in-chief because she was always on the move. But he found a unique way to pitch his ideas to her. By catching the editor-in-chief in the elevator, he was able to pitch his story ideas. Another origin story comes from Hollywood, where screenwriters would catch unsuspecting executives in elevators to pitch their story ideas. The origin story of Philip Crosby dates back further than Caruso's story from Vanity Fair. Philip was the writer of The Art of Getting Your Own Way in 1972. Philip suggested that individuals should be prepared with information about themselves and the quality that they can bring in the time it takes to ride an elevator. Now, these are all the possible origin stories of how the term elevator pitch came about. From Philip to screenwriters in Hollywood to Caruso, they all have some sort of claim on coming up with the idea of the elevator pitch. But I think the real story of how the term elevator pitch was born comes from Elisha Otis. And I first discovered that story in this book, To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. In the 1850s, Elisha Graves Otis solved one of the toughest engineering problems. He was the inventor of a device meant for elevator safety. He was also the founder of Otis Elevator Company. In 1852, Otis was working for a furniture company in New York. Back then, workers used hoist pulley systems to raise heavy equipment to the top floors of buildings. It was very dangerous and hazardous to work because if a laborer lost grip of the rope or the rope broke, you could have fatal injuries and potentially damage a lot of equipment. That's precisely when inspiration struck for Otis, who was a natural inventor and scientist. So Otis wondered how he could do the same task, but in a safe way. So in 1852, Otis and his sons designed the first safety elevator and tested it successfully. He initially thought so little of his idea that he didn't apply for a patent or try to sell it. The public was quite skeptical and fearful of the idea itself. So over the next couple of months, no orders came in for this brilliant invention. To tell his story, Otis eyed the 1854 Crystal Palace Exposition in New York to demonstrate his invention and gain publicity. One afternoon, he gathered convention goers for a demonstration. As the crowds gathered around him, he climbed on the platform and directed his assistant to hoist the elevator 3 stories off the ground. Then, as he stood and gazed down at the crowd, Otis took an axe and slashed the rope that was suspending the elevator in midair. The platform fell only 3 inches and stopped. The automatic brakes kicked in. The safety locking mechanism had worked. Still alive and standing, Otis looked at the shaken crowd and said, "All safe, gentlemen, all safe." It was the very first demonstration of an elevator safe to carry people. And with that demonstration, the elevator pitch was born. This one invention transformed not only the safety of elevators, but also architecture, because now you could build vertically. One final fun fact, an Otis Elevator Company employee coined the term escalator, which refers to the continuous loop moving staircases with the ability to ascend and descend. And finally, if you've enjoyed the content of this video and you've learned something, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and in the comments below, let me know when was the first time you got onto an escalator or an elevator. I remember my first time when I got onto an escalator. This was when I had traveled to Delhi, India for the first time, and I was at the airport, and that's where I first stepped on an escalator. I don't have a memory of when was the first time I stepped on an elevator, but that escalator one is pretty clear in my mind. And finally, thank you to Elisha Otis, who made elevators safe, but also transformed architecture, giving rise to high rise. That rhymes because it shines. So cheesy. See you in the next one. Peace.